Thank you very much for that welcome. Normally reserve the applause to the end, but particular thanks to Matt. A very well-judged introduction on his part, I thought. As he mentioned, I am new to Sage. I've been with the business actually about 100 days now. And for me, this event is a privilege, really, to be able to spend this time with so many of our customers. Because this event, for me, is not really about us talking to you or pitching to you. It's much more about us listening to you, figuring out how we can collaborate better with you, and how we can expose you to a number of the experts that we have both within Sage and the organisations that we partner with to deliver some of our products and services. So it's a real pleasure for me to be here, and I really appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedules to come to Manchester to join us. Now, as you will have been able to tell from the photograph that Carl showed you, I'm not a television presenter. This is not a weather forecast, but it is an economic forecast. And I want to explain a little bit about what we've got here. Normally, you wouldn't expect to see all the sun in Switzerland and the cloud and the rain in the Med and in some of those other places. But what this basically does, it gives you a very simple picture. This is data from consensus economics of where we are economically right now in each of these countries in terms of GDP growth and also in terms of inflation. And the weather forecast itself signifies how well or not the prospects are for some of those countries. Now, one might agree or disagree with whether one should have cloud or rain or thunder and lightning, but what you've got here is a picture that shows optimism from consensus when they're looking at next year. So when you look at the numbers on the left are 2011, and the numbers on the right are the forecast for 2012. But what you can see is a very clear pattern in the Med. Things remain challenged. I think the weather forecasts, the kind of scorchio in Spain might be a little bit optimistic. You've also got the ongoing challenge and question around UK and Ireland. Although Ireland is performing slightly better than it has, it's obviously had some grave economic challenges in the last couple of years. But interestingly, having used this kind of picture to illustrate the economic landscape over the last couple of years, we're now beginning to see uncertainty in the centre of Europe, and specifically now with France and Germany, the couple of countries that until very recently were the real powerhouses and remain so in many respects of the Eurozone, but now encountering some significant challenges of their own. But this is something I use quite often to give a little bit of an illustration of what the wider market looks like, because one of the things I'd like to do today is share what some of our impressions are of the market, share what some of our thoughts are around the technology pieces that we want to focus on, but equally importantly, to give you what we think is the reality about the current economic climate. So this is something that is particularly important to us, because I'm sure you will all have had this conversation with friends or associates about us over a period of time, potentially talking ourselves into trouble, talking ourselves into recession. And what this picture actually shows you is not just the GDP performance, so the wellness, if you like, of the UK economy. It also shows you how confident we are about the performance of the UK economy. And the paler line is the confidence index. Now, something for me that's quite significant about that is what the last 6 months tells us. So it's been a bit rocky, we've been a bit up and down, there's a lot of uncertainty. One thing that's becoming more and more clear is there's a level of ambivalence now as well about some of this economic data. We've become used to some of these uncertain or bad news stories. And the thing that I'm hoping is that ambivalence actually leads to a bit of resilience and an increasing level of confidence. Because something that's important for this audience, and for me in particular with my role focused on small business, is to understand that this is a picture of the UK economy as a whole. It's not a picture of what small businesses are telling us they think, what they fear and what they think are their opportunities. So you'll all be familiar with the kind of outlook. This is the guess, okay? And when you talk to any of the major forecasting bodies, one thing that's quite reassuring about them is they're all self-aware enough to tell you that they get it wrong. We know what's happened. We know the recession that we experienced in '09, and now it's about what happens next. The things that I'm focusing on are how we pick out the key pieces, the key growth enablers to help you as organisations to lead the UK economy out of this malaise. And my personal belief is that small business is the absolute key to ensuring that that turnaround happens. Now, some of us will have more optimism. Some of us will expect a very strong recovery, very strong growth over a protracted period of time. Some of us will be less confident. An insight into my planning assumptions, and this is my personal planning assumption, I think things will be flat for probably 3 to 5 years. I'm not particularly expecting the economy to help us in terms of delivering growth. I think right now it's about what we do in order to deliver that growth. And for strong and competitive small businesses in the UK, I think this is a crisis that's too good to waste. It's a fantastic opportunity for you to differentiate yourselves from your competitors and to really build strong businesses that will see out this period of uncertainty and into the great times that inevitably lie ahead for us. So this is one thing that gives me a little bit more confidence from a small business perspective. So let me explain what the business index is. The Sage Business Index is a piece of research that we carry out. This is the second time we've done it. It was finished off in September. And we survey 10,000 small businesses around the globe. And we ask you a number of questions about how you feel, what your fears are, what your investment priorities are, and generally what observations you've got for us trying to build some intelligence around the market outlook. What you've got here is the subset that is relevant for the UK. So over 1,000 small and medium-sized businesses in September gave us their feedback. And one thing that I agree with, and Guy Berrier, who is our Group Chief Executive, articulates it quite nicely here, is, in my view, small businesses have the tenacity and the flexibility to adapt much more quickly and to invest much more quickly and to change much more quickly. And that's why I think, as Guy says, you guys will keep managing your businesses through these uncertain times. But I've got a couple of threads that I would just like to tease out for you that really come out of the research that we've done. So you can see here we're talking about what you believe are the biggest business challenges for the next 6 months. Just take a second to digest a couple of those. Things that are right at the top of the agenda are about growth. And for us, that's great news because that's where we want to put our focus with you. 3 key words came out of the narrative, if you like, in terms of the feedback that we were given. Small and medium-sized businesses are much more confident on the whole than the wider UK economy. Much, much more confident to a significant degree. And things that those businesses are looking at doing, things that you and your businesses are doing, are much more aligned around investment, innovation, and launching new products and services than when you compare to the classic UK corporate-style organisations. Now, we know there are some things within this slide clearly and within the consideration that are significantly out of our control. Interestingly, political stability is still there, but much further down the agenda than some people might have anticipated. But the great news is the small businessman, the small businesswoman has got the focus on growth absolutely front and centre in their businesses today. And that's one area where I think we really need to focus in order to help enable that growth with you. So when it comes to these kind of growth enablers, I don't want us to sit in a darkened room in Newcastle and try and anticipate what you want. I want us to be very upfront. I want us to come to you. I want us to talk to you, and I want us to listen to you and ultimately to execute. So many of you, I'm sure, will have been at Sage World last year. And we used the Spot Me devices throughout the period of the keynote that my boss, Brendan Flattery, who's now the CEO of the UK and Ireland, carried out. And we asked you 3 questions about what would be most beneficial for you in terms of our focus. And the first thing that came up was usability. Now, as Matt mentioned earlier on, I've been in the business for around 100 days, and I'm familiar already with the usability challenge that some of you may face. Things that we've focused on improving in 2012, the most recent launch of the product that came out in August, first thing is usability. One of the ways we measure usability is with a ratio effectively called the Net Promoter Score. So we understand from feedback from you about the number of people that would promote our service or product, and we deduct the number of detractors, and that gives us a figure. So we can tell quite quickly and quite easily whether the usability in this context is improving or deteriorating. The great news for us is that we're seeing usability Net Promoter Scores improve in double digits. So that tells us that some of the work that we've done in the last 12 months, responding to one of the things you stated to us was a key priority for you, is starting to make a difference. Re-emphasize the point, it's starting to make a difference. Now, this difference is making growth more feasible for a number of organizations. Not just the usability, but I'll talk in a couple of seconds about the other 2 key questions. But when we're talking about usability and talking about what we invest our money in terms of trying to improve and simplify, which I think is one very critical thing certainly from my personal perspective, we invest a significant 7-figure sum in research and development in the UK every year. And what we're not doing is just slicing that R&D investment very thin and very shallowly. We're polarizing it around the 2, 3, or 4 areas that you tell us will make the biggest difference for you. So you will continue to see more improvement around usability. Another key thing around usability is installation. Another key thing about usability, clearly, is performance and speed. A number of you will have been performing over a period of years, I'm sure, bank reconciliations. And you'll be familiar with that moment you press the button and you could go and put the kettle on, make yourself a cup of tea, maybe even a slice of toast, read the television stats for the following evening, and then come back and the reconciliation might be done. We've invested a lot in trying to streamline and make that piece much, much quicker, much, much more efficient. And in many cases, we're seeing improvement of up to 10 times in terms of the speed of those bank reconciliations within Sage 2012. So something that we believe is a significant step in the right direction. We asked again the same question about a couple of other areas, and one thing that came out very, very strongly from you was access levels. And I'll give a little bit of context around this piece. This was the access of our customer support or technical support people within Sage. Now, I don't know if you know this, but just within the piece of business that I'm responsible for, we have 550 people in customer services. And those guys take on average 7,500 telephone calls every day from you. Some people asking about help with installations, some people having very specific challenges that they need our help to resolve. Now, some of you want a pit stop style engagement. It's very specific, you know what you want, you come in, you go out. We absolutely want to facilitate and enable that for you. Equally though, a number of you will need something that's more consultative, and you will need to feel confident that the person you're engaging with is not in a hurry to get you off the phone in classic call center style. They're skilled, they're capable, and they care about the challenge that you've got, and they're willing to engage with you in a much more consultative manner. And we've invested in the last 12 months over £1 million in the resourcing. Incrementally is the key piece of this area. Because we decided to put a marker in the ground so that we could measure some of our service experience. So we talk about now internally 90-90. What 90-90 means is 90% of the incoming telephone calls from you are answered within 90 seconds. We've become very, very focused on that because we saw a number of you in challenging situations where you needed urgent responses, where you may not have been able to get in touch with us quickly enough. It's great news for me because these investments were agreed and kicked off a number of months ago, and I'm here at this stage, and I can tell you that in August we achieved that kind of performance within our customer and technical services, and again we did in September. So again, I believe we're moving in the right direction, but there's been a significant investment requirement in order to get there, and this is exactly what you told us you needed us to do. There's one other really good piece of news about this, actually, which is a little bit of a stop press. So last night was the European Call Centre Awards dinner in London. A number of large blue-chip global companies are involved in this particular selection process, and we got into the shortlist of 3 with Everything Anywhere, so T-Mobile, as you may know them, and also Vertex, which is Marks and Spencer. And great news for us is that we came out on top. So last night, Sage won the European Call Centre of the Year. Those kind of things, you've got your own offices and you've got your own workspaces and you might have the odd certificate or something along those lines. These kind of awards are really, really meaningful. They tell us that we're not where we want to be yet necessarily, but that we are moving in the right direction. So it's a great piece of recognition, especially for all the guys who work tirelessly in customer services through the extended hours and all the pieces of work they do for you. So I'm very proud of what those guys have achieved. Another thing that you've talked to us about, and this is the 21st century after all, is about mobile access. How we help support you do your business on the move rather than spend a disproportionate amount of your time administering your business. That's one of the things that mobile, I think, has to bring to you guys as a community. We're all familiar with any device type, anytime, anywhere. They're all important parts of the mobile proposition. But when I go back to that growth enablement, how does mobile actually help you grow? That's the key thing for me. How does it make you more competitive? How does it enable you to respond more quickly to your customer demands? How does it enable you to differentiate yourselves from the competition that exists out there? In an environment where it's more tricky than ever to collect cash, and you're in the close proximity with some of your customers, not quite like Spot Me, where you get my ugly mug popping up if you press the wrong button, but where you can be close to your customers and see live exactly what your position is with those customers. Those kind of tools will enable you to be more productive, more competitive, and ultimately to grow. So in August, at the same time that we launched Sage 50 2012, which I've already talked about in terms of the usability piece specifically, we also launched Sage 50 Mobile. Now, some of you told us that we were mad, but we made it free. So anybody that's bought the Sage 50 2012 product has also got the mobile product for free. I apologize to any BlackBerry users in the house. Appreciate it's a little bit of a tricky time for you just now. But we've had a significant number of downloads in very short order from the App Store with Apple and also from BlackBerry. And when we look back at the research that we did, over 50% of you were asking us for mobile now. And the thing that was really important to us to understand was, what sort of devices do you use? And over 80% of you use smart devices. So you use BlackBerries, you use iPhones, and so on, and so on. I've got a little video to show you in a second about the way that one of our customers is using the mobile solution. But once again, for me, it's all about growth enablement. It's also about what comes next, because as soon as you embark on the mobile journey, knowing the proliferation of these smart devices and the speed that those markets move at, you know you've got to move pretty quickly yourself to keep up as well. So we're working on the iPad version, and we hope to have that with you very, very soon. Jeff Phillips and his team are out there in one of the domes, and they'll be happy to talk to you about what comes next for mobile. But suffice to say, we see it as something that's very, very strategically important in terms of what we're focusing on, an enabler for you. Guys, can you show the video, please?
For me, the mobile application means that from wherever I am, when I'm on a motorway service station or out on a customer site, I can access the information and see exactly where we are.
I think the idea of having a mobile to access your accounts while you're on the move is brilliant, especially for sales and marketing directors.
You were going to visit a customer, you could dial up and make sure that they had no outstanding accounts at that moment in time.
You can capture data, have a look at what's owing or what's going on very, very quickly.
The business partner lives some distance away. If we do meet up, we can check the accounts and see where we're at.
Our MD does sometimes work away from the company, and if you were to have the mobile access, he'd be able to look at the accounts while he's away and on the move.
Also, with a mobile application, cash flow is important to us, so we need to know where we are on a day-to-day basis. And the mobile application gives me that ability to monitor the situation.
It's kind of hard to end without an advert on that piece when you hear your customer advocating the difference that one of the solutions that you propose makes to their business. One of the other big technology advancements that we're all aware of, I'm sure, is around cloud and software delivered as a service. Now, many of you will have been Sage customers for a number of years, and you will have a very, very powerful desktop application at your fingertips that you need to run your business day in and day out. And for equally a large number of you, that will continue to be the case well into the future. We don't anticipate for 1 second that the desktop style application will go away. But what we're equally cognizant of is that we need to provide choice, and we need to give you different options in terms of access and also in terms of how you pay for the services that you receive from us. So that's why we've invested a huge amount of money in Sage One. For those of you that aren't aware of Sage One is a product that's pointed specifically at the micro business space at this stage, 1 to 5 users typically being the kind of sweet spot, and it's an accounting solution. It's something that we've built ground up with research from hundreds or thousands even of customers over the UK to tell us what you actually want and need to see in this kind of application. There are times when we can deliver you service capability which may be fantastic but may not be what you need. One of the key focuses within Sage One has been making sure that we are relevant and impactful in terms of the service that we provide to you through that product. So a number of you will use desktop products today and will continue to in the future. But equally, a number of you will already be using SaaS-based software offerings, and now you can start to do that with Sage One. Now, as I mentioned, Sage One is an accounting solution. Sage One Payroll, for those of you that want to do your payroll yourselves, and also for those very important accountants that we partner with significantly across the UK, is coming soon. Equally, we're working hard in the development teams to develop the next iteration of what the Sage Online accounting platform looks like for you as well. So our intent is to be able to give you complete end-to-end choice in terms of the means by which you access the product, ultimately how you pay for the product, whether you're in a micro business or whether you're in a small to medium-sized business. Again, that's work that is live now. I hope to be able to bring you more news on that in the not too distant future. So this is kind of difficult, okay, this bit. I didn't want to just stand up and tell you what we're doing. I did want to give you a picture of where we think the markets are. I think, by the way, we're all on the same page in that respect, certainly from an economic standpoint. But I did want to tease out that I think the small and medium-sized businesses have almost a mini microclimate all of our own, and the confidence levels within that microclimate are very different to the wider UK PLC. I also wanted to just touch on some of the pieces that you asked us about last year, as much as anything to share with you the fact that we do listen and we have done something about the things that you've told us were the big needle movers for you as businesses. And I thought what I'd do is just share a little bit with you about what I'm focused on. Because one thing I'm learning, I'm working for Sage for 90 to 100 days, we're not all that different to you. Sure, we've got some differences. We're very fortunate about some of the ways that we're capitalised in terms of the way the business has performed over a period of years has enabled and facilitated that. But we share so many of the same challenges that you do. And right at the top of that list is growth. Absolutely front and centre, along with customer service, intimacy, and innovation. But here are 3 things that we're focused on right now. One thing that I spend a lot of time talking to the teams that I'm aligned to is about focusing on our core. I think it's very, very important that we continue to innovate and invest around the things that have made us strong. I think sometimes it's very easy to get distracted and for your focus to move dramatically to new areas of business, and we must continue to look at and qualify those opportunities. I'll talk to diversifying the offer in a moment, but we cannot do that at the expense of focusing on and improving our core offering. For you as customers, the reason that you've worked with us for as long as you have is because of our core offering. I want to see us continue to innovate and improve the way that core offering looks and feels in terms of experience for you. The second thing that I'm putting a lot of focus on is having the right people on board. Personally, I think the biggest execution differentiator is people. You'll all have worked in your own businesses or other businesses over a period of time, and one thing certainly does stand the test of time: the right people in the right place deliver amazing results. Always. And there are different ways in a competitive labour market that we need to get the right people on board. Many, many talented people are nervous about the economic prospects. So as an employer, we have to be able to attract those people with slightly different offerings. Sure, we need to pay a good salary for a fair day's work and all of that kind of simple but important stuff. But from an employer branding perspective, how will you attract and how will you retain the right talent to your businesses? This is something that we're investing significant sums of money in. Equally, how you make sure you haven't got the right people on board is as important. As with any of you, again, that will have started a new role, I'm new-ish to Sage. And some of our guys are very, very talented and will do a fantastic job for us in terms of that growth enablement that I've referred to. And some may not. Part of my challenge is making sure that in the right way I manage that situation. And I need help. And I'm very fortunate that we've got a very significant HR function that can support me and guide me through some of those conversations and challenges. But my question is, do you? And I'm not sure that you do. You have a huge amount of personal experience, you know what you've learned over a period of years, and you're more than capable of managing these situations. But at times it's important to have a partner. And that's why we work with Advisor Plus, that's why we've worked on HR advice, to try and create a service there that we think is one of those critical growth enablers. Equally, that's the kind of less pleasant side of managing people. Flexible benefits and finding new ways to entice the new generation of employees to your company is equally important. Something that comes out for us in almost every single piece of research that we do into our new employees is they want to see us acting in a way that promotes corporate social responsibility. Now, it's not easy to achieve that in every small business, but it's just another example of what some of those levers may be to attract, retain, and ultimately to develop the right talent to do the right job to help you differentiate yourselves. And the final piece is focus on diversifying the offer. Now, For me, diversifying the offer doesn't mean left field. One of the things that my personal view is that you need to work on the adjacencies of your core business wherever you possibly can. In order to derive significant value from the business you've already built, your diversification, certainly from our perspective, needs to be close to the core. So when we embark on new ventures, as I explained, with Advisor Plus, with Mercer in terms of the Sage flexible benefits, and a number of other things that we will look at investing in the coming year, mobility, still further, the online piece with Sage One, accounts, and soon to be payroll, we're focusing on the periphery of where that core value really is. Because we think two things are important about these focus areas. One is that it's relevant, and two, that it has impact, and it actually helps you deliver the growth that you're looking to deliver. So, there's a bit of a headline view from me. So as I mentioned, piece around the economic landscape that we're largely familiar with, but it's important, please, it's important to separate performance of the UK economy from the confidence of small and medium-sized businesses. They are two very different things. You guys are a very, very different proposition. I also talked about some of the things that you referred to last year in the sense of those critical things that you wanted us to invest and focus in. I hope what you've seen from me in terms of what we've done on usability, what we've done in terms of access, and what we've done in terms of mobility as proof points of the fact that we're making and continue to make those investments. And I just wanted to share with you what I see some of the growth levers are for us, and hopefully some of those things might be able to help you. So, any questions? I'm looking at the iPad here. There's a couple of questions on the spot me. Let me just read them before I read them out, just in case I shout anything inappropriate out. So, GB asks, we are a very new franchisor and our franchising consultant advised us that we should target Ireland and Spain first, but looking at your forecast, it would contradict this advice. Crikey. I am not an economic forecaster. Okay, just to be clear, I am not an economic forecaster. So the data that we've shared with you there is primarily from Consensus, the Office of National Statistics, and PricewaterhouseCoopers. However, I understand, GB, wherever you are, why you would ask that question. You know the answer if you're an entrepreneur. And that's why I'm doing a job in a corporate instead of sat where you are. Okay? I'm a coward entrepreneur. I have the luxury of this wonderful infrastructure behind me to come and do the things that I want to do, but you've actually made the leap. You've gone out there and done it. And when is the best time to start a new business? Right now. So, am I telling you that I don't think you should go headlong into it? Be careful. But please don't take any of that data as a dissuader for you to make the investments that you need to make for your business. Rudolph Stewart asks, will Sage be available for Mac? It's a great question. Sage is actually available for Mac today, but it's not simple. And we're working and considering how we might make that more simple, specifically for the Sage 50 community. You can work with an emulator, like one of our partners, Parallels, and you can use Sage 50 through that means. Equally, if you use Sage One, the online variant works completely seamlessly in the Mac environment. We understand the demands, the way that the market is evolving. We understand the numbers of Mac users are increasing all the time. So it's very much in our minds about how we make that simpler. But one thing that we can see is that the online offering provides a real seamless integration for Mac users. Crikey, there's an absolute stinker there. I'm not going for that one. Well, there were only actually 3 questions. So rather than try and force something or make something up for you, I'll wrap up if that's okay with you. So let me just recap a little bit from what I said at the very outset. What we want this event to be and to be all about is not talking to or at you. It's listening to you and understanding how we can collaborate with you. I'm ready and willing to make the investments to drive the areas of improvement that we both want to see, but we need you to tell us in the same way that you did last year. We can't do everything, and we can't do everything to the extent that you might want us to in short order, but one thing I'm very committed to is this relationship growing over time and us doing more of the things that will be relevant to you and have a big impact on you and ultimately will enable you to grow. As I said, it's a huge privilege for me so early in my time in Sage to get the opportunity to stand up in front of you. Thank you all very much for joining us in Manchester and welcome to Sage World. Thank you.